Okay, well, welcome everybody to the seminar on the power of breathing. Breathing has been one of the most groundbreaking things that I've come into with clients. And over the years, I've been doing this now for, I want to say 17 years. And much of my time spent in the fitness industry has been trying to help people with pain and dysfunction. I'll tell you a little bit about my story in a little bit. But as I've been trying to figure out how to help people, I originally started working in physical therapy. I was there for 3 years. And we were always trying to help people out of chronic pain, but what we found was that people would generally get better for, somewhere between 2 to 3 months. They'd be doing really well. And then somewhere in the 3 to 6 month range, they'd encounter the same problem over and over again. Now, working with the body is a lifelong thing that we all try to do. So it's just because someone experiences an injury again or a discomfort again doesn't mean that their body's broken or that we haven't had some semblance of progress. But what I was noticing with the techniques that we were using was that people would have the exact same issue, usually with more increased intensity over time. And that was, devoid of any scans that showed any tears or joint damage. And so chronic pain is an ongoing conversation that continues to happen. There are people all over the world who are continuing to try to study it. I'm fortunate enough that I have colleagues in different parts of the world who that's what they do full time, is that they go through and they study the body, they break down cadavers. But I have exhausted a lot of the information that's currently out there, a number of years ago. And what I've now had to do is rely on colleagues from around the world who are not published and who don't have data that's readily available. And these guys are kind of creating the next forward steps in the industry, even though it's not quite as available. Fortunately, in the last year or two, I've started to see some of this stuff come more into mainstream, but it's still not talked about that often. So today I want to walk through really the power of the breath and the power of breathing and what it is. So the diaphragm and the breathing can impact the body's perception of chronic pain. If you have high stress levels, as an example, or if you've experienced chronic pain, the pathway between the area that's feeling pain and your brain will get heightened. And it's a way of saying kind of the pathway to being able to feel pain is like a highway. So if you felt it for a while and it still continues to bother you, you tend to hyper focus on it. And so that highway for information will get bigger. And so one of the areas of pain management is, and even, dysfunction, is to be able to concentrate on being able to make that pathway a little bit smaller. And one of the ways to be able to doing that is to work on the breath so that you can downregulate your body's fight flight mechanism, and you end up actually feeling less of the discomfort. It's pretty common that someone might actually start out feeling a pain at a 2 out of 10, and after 5, 10 years of feeling it, now they feel it at a 9 out of 10, even though the pain hasn't actually gotten worse. So breathing can help the brain's perception. If someone has issues with chronic tightness in the neck and or headaches, I would estimate that 90% of the chronic headaches that I see are actually from the muscles around the neck. And so while we can release those muscles short term with something like massage therapy, long term, if people can start learning how to breathe better, it can start creating looseness in the neck overall. And then, adjustments can start happening and people feel it less. Diaphragm breathing can also impact things like tightness in the hips. If you've got chronic low back pain, I'll tell you a little bit about my story in a second, or radiating pain. I've actually had situations before where I've had people come in who have radiating pain into the genitals, and they've had that for, 5, 6, 7 years and gone through all forms of PT and all that. And then we have them start doing breathing drills, and in about a month, it's completely gone. Chronic stress and overactive fight or flight states, pain to the arms and fingers. I've had a number of people who have had pain that's been diagnosed as carpal tunnel, and it turns out that it's actually coming from, again, tight muscles in the neck. We work on the neck, but ultimately, if we don't restore the breathing, that just comes back, and it's just as bad as it always is. So I will tell you that these muscles of breathing are intricately important to the body. Today, we're going to cover 4 different things. One is chronic pain and the body's autopilot. I want to help you understand the body's autopilot mechanism so you can understand why breathing is so important. We'll cover a little bit about the anatomy of the diaphragm, and then also tools to check yourself for dysfunction. I'm going to actually take you through tools that I use with people here in my facility to be able to help them start understanding this. And then we'll also give you some drills right at the end so that you can start practicing this on your own. So this 30 minutes will be really, really valuable use of your time. So number one, chronic pain in the body's autopilot. So I got into this industry because I injured my back skydiving when I was about 20 to 21 years old. Skydiving, my parachute collapsed. I fell, hit the ground. And that introduced me to what it was like to have severe sciatica down the backs of both of my legs. So I was a college student trying to function and severe pain, severe debilitating pain all the time. It made it hard to function. So I do know what it's like to be in chronic pain. At the time, this is when I was working in physical therapy. Physical therapy couldn't help me, even though I was, working with physical therapists and all that. And that got me into corrective exercise, and corrective exercise got me most of the way there to the point where I would say I was at least strong. Um, However, I would be strong and out of pain most of the time. And then I would have these major blowouts about 3 to 4 times a year where I'd be debilitated and just have to lay on the couch. And I went on, even as a corrective exercise specialist, for a while under this philosophy, knowing that I could do a generally better job than most people helping them get out of pain by doing things like specific strength exercises and specific stretching exercises. And that would create some good forward motion for them to where they could get out of pain. But inevitably, because we were only getting to part of the body's function or restoring part of the function, inevitably people would have kind of the process that I had, which is you have these semi-regular big blowouts, and then in between you'd be really good, and then all of a sudden you have a blowout. So a lot of this has come from me having to have lived in experience of trying to get myself out of pain and realizing that my body didn't function like other people's bodies. And that's because I have a flattened disc space between my L5S1, which I still have. So my disc space is about a quarter of the height of a normal disc, which means that I have a different type of exercise tolerance than other people do. So this is a lived in experience. I should technically have surgery for this. I don't have any pain, so I'm not going to. But if I were to get a scan, this would be something that someone would say like, "Hey, you should seriously consider some kind of back surgery." So what I came to understand about the human body is that the human body isn't just about getting certain muscles stronger and getting certain other muscles looser. It's that's one part of the system that we can handle with strength training. But the other part is that the body has its own autopilot system. So think about if you go in and you clean your house every day, but you still allow people uh, to come into the house with dirty shoes on a regular basis. What ends up happening is your house ends up getting dirty over and over and over and over, and you have to keep going back and cleaning it up. Now, on the other hand, let's say that you hire someone, and this person is in charge of keeping your house clean. You may have to do some maintenance on your house, right? But for the most part, you're going to show up at your house, and your house is going to be relatively clean. I would call that system your body's autopilot, meaning that your body is designed to regulate itself. And it's not just designed to create strength, which compresses your joints, it's also designed to create space. So if we're doing all these strength exercises, you get a fair amount of compression. The question is, how does your body decompress? It doesn't just happen through stretching. One of the major mechanisms of decompression is your breath. And that'll make more sense when we walk through the diaphragm. But one of the tools that I like to use is this is a baby rattle. This is called a tensegrity system, and this is what your body does. So normally what will happen is someone will think I have pain or dysfunction, so I'm going to strength train part of my body. That'll make it a little bit tighter and get me out of pain. And then you have a little bit of imbalance, so I've got to strength train this part. But what ends up happening is that your body becomes less resilient. So if this hits against an item, it's more likely to break. A functional body should have a combination of space and also strength, meaning that when you compress it through something like a fall or a jump or you're working out, it should be able to decompress itself relatively easy. And this is the way that all of our bodies functioned when we were born, is this system of being able to compress and then decompress. What will happen is over time as we age or through injury, we might have a certain part of our body that tightens down, creating chronic pain or dysfunction. And what's going to help open this up? There's an expansion on the inside that will help to recalibrate and realign. And this is your body's autopilot system. So when we talk about the breath, I want you to keep in the back of your mind that what we're thinking about is restoring this flexible, resilient system that helps your body to move. And the diaphragm is the reset button for all that. Historically, what we've done in the past is that everything starts to relate to core training. So someone will say, well, I have dysfunction. So what do you have? You have a weak core. That's the common terminology that's used. So there was a period of time within both strength training and in physical therapy where everything focused on getting a really strong core. What did that mean? Lots of planks. It meant squeezing your core as hard as you could when you worked out. But to make this relatable, none of us did any of those things when we were kids. Somehow our bodies managed to stay strong. without us having to do any of that extra work and without any specific training. And that's really where we're trying to get back to. So as I was working through helping people with dysfunction, I did the same thing that I was taught, which is, hey, any pain that you have, if we make your core way stiffer, then it will get rid of pain. And it does work really well short term. But what I started finding is people started getting herniations. So an overly tight core with muscles in your core that are pulled really tight makes them less resilient and more prone to tear and injury. So I started peeling back the layers of the core and recognizing, wow, what's underneath these external core muscles are muscles that are on the inside. And what helps to calibrate those, it's actually the muscles of breathing that create real foundational core strength. So we want to walk you through the anatomy of the diaphragm so that you understand just a little bit more and how interconnected of a system this is. So if you look at this picture right here, this would be on the left side. This is a picture of your diaphragm. So in order for you to breathe, you'll see that these muscles go up into your rib cage and come down and attach on either side of your rib cage toward the bottom. So when you breathe, this large balloon-shaped muscle is supposed to pull down into your abdomen and create negative pressure into your abdomen, which pushes outward on your spine and pushes outward on the muscles of your core to help decompress and help realign your body. What I've often find is that when people don't breathe well, either through sucking in their stomach all the time because of aesthetic purposes, culturally, none of us want to have a rounded belly, although the most functional people I've ever seen are people whose bellies are slightly rounded, interestingly enough. So we're all walking around with our bellies sucked in and our chests up. And what ends up happening is we can't actually pull the diaphragm down. So our diaphragm gets stuck upward and starts getting weak. And the accessory muscles of breathing end up getting overactive. What are the accessory muscles of breathing? Those are your neck muscles. So if you take a couple deep breaths right now, and what you may find is either you've got your stomach sucked in so you don't allow it to expand, or when you breathe, you do this. These muscles do help breathe, but they're accessory muscles. So if you primarily use your muscles of your neck to breathe, you are going to become overly chronically tight, and it's going to push on nerves and cause a bunch of pain and dysfunction. If you look at this picture up in the top right, this shows both before and an after picture of the breathing out, breathing in mechanism I just talked about. So on the left is when you breathe in, you can see the diaphragm is pressed down, and that creates what's called intra-abdominal pressure down into your abdomen. So a way of imagining this is imagine that you've got a balloon in your stomach. So the soft part of your abdomen, right below your rib cage. You've got a balloon in your stomach, and every time you breathe in, you compress that balloon down. And what happens to the balloon is now designed to press downwards, forwards, backwards, and side to side, which creates this sort of integrity in your abdomen so that your joints can find stability, they can adjust themselves. And what I have seen is that the diaphragm breathing done well can actually turn into your body's internal chiropractic mechanism. I like chiropractors. However, I believe that your body was designed to be able to adjust itself, and that we should use chiropractors when necessary. In the meantime, if we work on the muscles of breathing, we get a lot of chiropractic stretching just naturally. The picture just to the right here is what happens when you breathe out. So you can see that the diaphragm relaxes and comes back up towards the top. And then when you breathe in again, the diaphragm muscle should press down into your abdomen. And then the bottom right picture of here is just a picture more of the same what we just talked about. So the total system of breathing or core strength is that your muscles squeeze in from the outside to create strength from the outside in, and that your breathing muscles push out to create strength from the inside out. And what you end up with, if those two function together well, is this kind of a system. If we're in a situation where we're not practicing the muscles of breathing, this may happen naturally if you're someone who does cardio or running, because it's harder to hold that restricted position. But what will happen is we end up just compressing everything over time with no decompression. One of the areas, now that I know what I know now, when I was a 19-year-old 4% body fat stud who ran outside all the time, I would often suck my stomach in, especially when I passed a pretty girl, because I wanted to look a certain way. And I started myself on this cycle of these severe neck muscle spasms that would kind of reach right back here. And knowing what I know now, it's because I was sucking in really hard, stopping my diaphragm from moving and overusing these muscles of my neck. To illustrate how important this is, I tried to find the study for you guys, but I read a study probably 8 years ago now that talked about how the muscles of the neck, the muscles of the diaphragm, and the muscles in the fronts of the hip, your hip flexors, all mirror each other in how tight they are. Meaning that someone could potentially have tightness in their neck, tightness or weakness, but it's actually because the diaphragm is weak and your muscles of your neck are mirroring the weakness and the tension that are in your diaphragm. The picture I'm showing you right now is down here. You'll see this is your sacrum and these are your hip bones. And then this long muscle that connects all the way down to your leg and then all the way up into your mid spine is your psoas. So anyone who's dealt with any hip tightness or seen a massage therapist, oftentimes it's common for them to talk about the tightness of the psoas. And if you do a psoas release, it oftentimes releases back pain. Well, if you look up, you'll see that the psoas runs right through some of the connective tissue in the diaphragm, meaning that if you have too much tension in your diaphragm, an underused diaphragm, something that's not been practiced at, expanding and contracting, that you can have potentially some kind of like spasmodic muscle movement, which can impinge on other muscles because there's a lot of things that run through the diaphragm. So hopefully I'm painting a broad enough picture about how intricately woven this thing is with the entire body. And in my opinion, if we're talking about helping your body function better, if you've got a house that keeps having issues with cracks in the walls and all that, so you keep fixing the cracks, but the issue is that the foundation itself has a crack, you're going to keep developing cracks in your house. In my opinion, from what I know now, this is totally my personal professional opinion right now. The muscle of the diaphragm is the deepest, most foundational muscle you can get to, because if it works well, it strengthens your pelvic floor. It automatically makes muscles release that should be released, and it automatically strengthens muscles that should be strengthened. Thus far, I've not found a deeper level of the core than this muscle right here. So hopefully I've painted a picture. So we're going to go into now some practicals, and this is a participation exercise that you guys can do with me. So when I have people come in, and anytime I have people first come in, we always run through the muscles of breathing, specifically if they have some kind of an issue that they've been dealing with that's been long-term dysfunction. So there's a few things that you can do if you'd like to do these with me now, or you can rewatch this video. It'll be on the website. You can do them later. But I have people lay on their back and relax. And then the first thing I have them do is just put one hand on the chest and one hand on the soft part of your abdomen right here. And when they do that, I have them just take a little bit and just breathe naturally, right? So just relaxed. You're not trying to force the inhale or the exhale. Just lay there. And as you're laying there, take some inventory. What do you feel expanding more? Is your chest expanding more? Is your abdomen expanding more? Some of you may find that your abdomen is not expanding at all, and then it's all chest and neck. But take some inventory. And if you find that your abdomen is not expanding at all, or that it's expanding minimally compared to your chest, then there could be some diaphragm dysfunction or underuse issues. Similarly, if you breathe in and you feel them both expand, but you feel your chest expand first and then your abdomen, that's also a sign that there's some dysfunctional pattern that you could work on. Or if you feel only your chest rising and falling and no abdomen at all, that's also another sign. So that's one area of examination. That mainly that's the basic bare bones exam that you'd want to do to be able to feel. The next place that we go to is to start working on what does three-dimensional or 360 breath look like and feel like. So let's say that you pass this one. Great. That's good. Let's dig a little deeper. Now you're going to take your hands and put them on your sides. I'll show you real quickly. Right on your sides. So this is my ribs, and I'm going to go right beneath my ribs onto the soft part of my abdomen. One thumb is in back and my fingertips are in the front, so I can feel my back, my sides, and the front of my abdomen all at the same time. And while you're laying there, now start breathing. And this one is usually a little bit more difficult for people. So what we want to feel on this one is, now that we've checked basics, is do you have the ability to breathe sideways into this part of your hand? And this should be with some pretty basic breaths, right? You have to make sure that you're just breathing. Don't push, don't force breath to go anywhere. But do you have the ability to breathe sideways into your hands while you're laying on your back? And I find that probably 70% of the people who walk in general probably have that issue. And I would say 95% of the people who have long-term issues can't feel themselves breathing into their sides. So take a moment and just inhale, exhale right there. And if you give yourself a little bit of time, what you might start to notice is that you'll feel some breathing into the front, maybe a little tiny bit into the sides. Some people have no ability to do this at all. And once you've gotten that down, now see if you can breathe into the tip of your thumb. And that's backwards breathing. So a three-dimensional: front, side, back, top, down. I'll just give you a second to do that. Now, some other things that you can add on to this are if you find that you've been unsuccessful there, most of the time what people will try to do is they'll try to inhale deeper to get themselves to feel this. Sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't. Most of the time, what I find is when people take a big inhale, they just emphasize the muscles of the neck a lot more and they feel a little bit of abdomen. So rather than trying to take a deep inhale, if you're trying to practice this, exhale completely, like breathe all of your air out. And now when you go to take an inhale, just inhale to the point again where you don't feel like you have to force. It's not a particularly deep breath, but the emphasis will be exhale completely and then take a regular inhale and do that a few times. And when I'm trying to get people to reorient this, that's the way that I will have people work on their breath if they're having a hard time. What I find is that if people have dysfunctional breathing or less than functional, I shouldn't say dysfunctional, less than functional breathing, when they do the deep inhale as a regular exercise, they end up with neck cramps 2 or 3 days after doing it, because these are being really overworked now. So it's a better pattern to try to think about a full exhale and then an inhale and see if you can spend some time here trying to correct that pattern so that what you want to feel is if you can get the sides, that's a good bare bones foundational layer, trying to breathe into this part of your hands. And then even better is if you can now start to feel yourself breathing into your thumbs, and you can do them both at the same time or separately. Now, one of the things you want to pay attention to, especially if you're someone who has back issues, is when you exhale into your hands, do you feel one side more than the other? So oftentimes people will tell me, yes, I can feel my right side pressurizing my thumb, but my left side isn't moving at all. In that case, as you get better at this, what may be happening is that because the left side muscles are not expanding when you breathe, this left side is getting tighter and tighter and tighter over time, and your breath is supposed to reset that tension. So in my case, with the back issues I just told you about, the left side of my back, I worked at this for a long time, so it never gets frozen anymore, but I used to get like chronic pain in the left side of my back once I got some handle on it. And what I noticed is I would start breathing into my left thumb, and then I would actually almost hold my breath for a second or two just to feel that stretch, and it rebalanced my spine. And so now when I practice breathing drills, which, whenever I think about it, I'll take a breath through my sides and through my back, I can access that pretty quickly. But if for some reason I don't, super hard workout, whatever, I can take a few minutes and reset that. If you can breathe three-dimensionally, great. If you have restrictions, then you're missing part of your body's natural reset. And remember, if you get any cracking, so if I get into a situation where I'm feeling tighter and I just stand there for a second or two and do these breathing drills, my lower back will start popping, and it'll pop probably 4 or 5 times. And then all of a sudden everything's reset. So that was a lot, but remember, you can go back and review this video. So here's the breathing drills. Once you've gotten a general idea of how to breathe into these areas of your hands, you can use a couple different techniques. One really good one that can also help calm your nervous system is the 4-7-8 technique, and this is commonly listed online. So you would inhale over 4 seconds, hold for 7, and then exhale over 8 seconds to make sure that you get a complete breath on the way out. And if you don't feel like you can access your breathing at all, especially if you can't access your back, you can do a very simple thing, which is laying down on your stomach and then put your hands underneath your forehead. And the weight of the ground against your abdomen will stop your abdomen from expanding forward. So now the only place it has to go is sideways, down, and backwards. And so that can be a really good technique. If you're someone who has chronic, like low spine issues, what is common is that you'll feel some stretching sensation right at the very bottom of your spine. And that's good. That's creating space. So I'll have people do that. Inhale, hold it there for a couple of seconds as they're feeling the stretch, and then release. And remember, if you've had this issue for a really long time, you're adjusting a lot of things in your body right now. You're giving some space, which is really good and really functional. Do understand that this will take a little bit of time if you've got a chronic issue, and that you might experience just a little bit of instability, a little bit of unstable feeling potentially, but that will go away as you continue to do this. I would encourage you practice this kind of breathing for 5 to 10 minutes a day. It's if you find yourself having a hard time going to sleep at night and you lay down and do this, it will calm your nervous system down and almost push you into sleep. I've seen that over and over with people. And then regularly throughout your day, when you're sitting there, take a couple of breaths. You don't have to do it 5 minutes, but just take a couple of breaths and spend some time to get some awareness. If you're a runner or someone who does cardio, this is a great time to do this. Again, when I first started practicing this, what I noticed, because I was the chronic abs guy, right? I was getting rid of my back pain by doing chronic abs all the time. What I noticed is that I developed a huge amount of tightness on the left side of my abdomen. So just from my left rib cage all the way down past my belly button on the left side. And still, even now, when I go to run, my neurological tendency is to hold the front part of my abdomen tight. So when I start running, I'll spend about 2 or 3 minutes and allow my abdomen to expand. And not only do I feel really good, but usually my run times get a lot better and I have a lot more breath. Now, I do still sometimes run with my shirt off, so you have to shut your ego down a little bit and just continue to breathe. But it's more about health than it is cultural norms anyway. So I hope all those things helped. We covered a lot of territory. This is usually 1 to 3 sessions with people in individual sessions. But when you start to get a handle on this should be a daily practice for all purposes, body and brain. And when you think about doing exercises, I would do it there too. When you start to lift weights, talk to your trainer or someone that you're working with about what it means to work with breathing, doing some of these exercises. And then there's also a slightly different style of breathing that is in Pilates that is complementary, but it is a slightly different style of breathing than what we're talking about here. So if you guys are doing Pilates in the studio, you'll notice that the breathing will be a little bit different. Understand that these are two sides of the same coin and they're designed to strengthen slightly different things. Lastly, if you're someone who's rewatching this video and you're like, you know what, I like this breathing stuff, but I'm not really getting a handle on it, and you want to schedule an appointment so that we can go through something like this together, you can reach out directly. You can just email me, nate@wellfitlife.org, and we can set something up. So I hope you guys enjoy this. I hope it was beneficial. If you have some follow-up questions, you guys who are on this call right now, if you have some follow-up questions for this, feel free to send me an email. Just to thank you for showing up to the live. And if you know anybody who is having any of the chronic issues that we talked about at the beginning, remember this will be on the website. So please feel free to share this with them, because this information has taken me years to be able to compile down to a little 30-minute segment. So I hope that helps, and I hope you guys have a great day, and I will maybe talk to you soon.